I still can't sleep without hearing my brother's screams. It's been 5 years since that day, but the memory still haunts me. My brother, Kofi, was a skilled hunter in our village. He loved going into the forest to catch bushmeat for our family. But there was one problem: Kofi never listened. In our village, there are certain days when you're not supposed to go hunting. These are called forbidden days. Our elders say that on these days, the forest is inhabited by evil spirits that can harm or even kill you. But Kofi didn't believe in those stories. He thought they were just old wives' tales. One forbidden day, Kofi decided to go hunting anyway. I begged him not to go, but he wouldn't listen. He said he needed to provide for our family and that he wasn't afraid of any spirits. My mother also pleaded with him, but he just ignored her. That morning, Kofi left for the forest early. I went about my day, doing my chores and helping my mother with some tasks. But as the day wore on, I started to feel uneasy. I had a bad feeling that something was wrong. As the sun began to set, Kofi still hadn't returned. My mother and I started to worry. We waited and waited, but there was no sign of him. Just as we were starting to lose hope, we heard a loud scream coming from the forest. It was Kofi. My mother and I rushed into the forest, following the sound of Kofi's screams. As we got deeper into the forest, the screams got louder and more intense. It sounded like Kofi was in a lot of pain. When we finally found Kofi, he was lying on the ground, thrashing about and screaming at the top of his lungs. His eyes were rolled back in his head, and he was foaming at the mouth. It was like he was possessed or something. My mother and I tried to calm him down, but he just kept screaming and thrashing about. We didn't know what to do. We were scared and confused. As we stood there, frozen in fear, I saw something that I would never forget. Kofi's body started to contort. His limbs twisted and turned in ways that seemed humanly impossible. It was like he was being manipulated by some unseen force. I was so scared that I almost ran away. But my mother grabbed my hand and held me in place. She was praying and crying at the same time. After what felt like an eternity, Kofi's screams finally stopped. He lay there, motionless and silent. My mother and I approached him cautiously, afraid of what we might find. When we got to him, we saw that his eyes had returned to normal, but his face was twisted into a look of pure terror. He was dead. The villagers say that Kofi was punished by the forest spirits for disobeying the forbidden days. They say that he was possessed by an evil spirit that twisted and contorted his body until he died. I don't know what to believe, but I do know that I'll never forget what I saw that day. And I'll never forget my brother's screams. Edit: I've been getting a lot of requests for more information about the forbidden days and the forest spirits. I'll try to provide more context. In our village, the forbidden days are days when the villagers are not allowed to go into the forest. These days are usually determined by the village elders, who use their knowledge of the traditional calendar to decide when it's safe to go into the forest. The forest spirits are believed to be malevolent entities that inhabit the forest. They are thought to be responsible for a lot of the bad things that happen in the village, from crop failures to illnesses. The villagers believe that the forest spirits are more active on the forbidden days, and that's why it's not safe to go into the forest on those days.